I'm gonna give everybody a second to go and share the live. Let a few people join into the room, and we are going to get started in 2 minutes. It seems like we have our last streamer in the room. Stay live. How you doing? Great, brother. Good to see you. All right. So if everybody could go to their Facebook, share it out on your pages. We'll give everybody a second to do that. Give our Facebook viewers a second to pop in. I know more of them will come as we continue. We'll get started in about 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Streamers, if y'all could give me a thumbs up to let me know that you're okay to go, we will go ahead and get started.
All cleared.
We're live.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Greetings. Welcome to the Revolutionary Black Panther Party first annual Democratic Mayoral Debates. Woo! I don't have an audience, but I'm going to be my own audience. Yes, I'm your moderator, Dre. I am the Minister of Information, also the Minister of Defense for the Revolutionary Black Panther Party, Louisville, Kentucky chapter. You see us here. Please, if you are tuning in, share this out. If you are live with us, share. We're going to give you a few minutes to share. This is a historic race. So this is a historic debate. Not only is it the first annual for the Panthers, but we have historical candidates on the ballot. So we are excited about this one. We want everybody to tune in, admit. You can, if you do have the Zoom link, you can share it out. People can come in. I will, for the sake of time and for the candidates, it will only be us talking. But if you would like to share a question from the conversation as we continue, please share that in the chat. Sorry, a lot of people are getting a minute. Please share that in the chat. Please keep yourselves muted. Candidates, my executive producer role is going to pop up. If you could mute your phones and any other sound in the room so that everybody could be respectful for that. So because this race, the reason we're having this, because this race is so stacked, we invited all of the candidates, but I'm not going to lie, I really wanted the top three because it was so stacked. And we really wanted to get in depth on candidates' views, their platforms, and things of that nature. So with 12 candidates, that gets to be a lot. So I am glad that 2 of the top 3 candidates we reached out to decided to participate and join us. And also that they are the Black candidates as well. So we all know that the Revolutionary Black Panther Party is a Black agenda, 10-point platform focused party organization. So to have 2 historical, if you didn't know, Louisville has never had a Black mayor, and in Ms. Parrish-Wright's situation, never had a woman as a mayor either. So we are sitting on some great things, especially for Black Louisville. And so I'm excited that we have both of our Black candidates here, that they are joining us and that they took some time out of their busy schedule to do this with us. Excuse me. So today, because we have our two, we're going to have a conversation. This is to uplift both Black candidates as they prepare to make history or her story. Don't say the Panthers aren't gender inclusive. No. So this is more for camaraderie versus separativeness, because we have to be real. As the Minister of Information, let me give you a quick fact. If any one of our Black candidates is to make it into the office, two things must happen. The first of those two things is that our Black community must rally around one of those candidates for that to be a beneficial or almost a stamp of a candidate. Or two, we must turn out more votes. Usually in the primary, we have 15 to maybe 20% turnout of people who can vote, go vote. We need more people. We need at least 30 to 31% turnout for any one of our candidates to be viable. And that's all across the board. So we are hoping that through this event that we can start to tease out the seriousness of this election and also put our stamp behind Black Louisville's candidate. Black Louisville's candidates or candidates, because there's nothing wrong with supporting two, but we do want one of you all in, Pastor Findley or Miss Shameka Parrish-Wright as Revolutionary Black Panther Party stands. So in the spirit of Black excellence, we're going to get this going. What I want to do is start with a quick moment of silence for all of our comrades, political prisoners, people that we have lost. And then afterwards, I was hoping that Pastor Findley could give us just a quick prayer to get us started, if he wouldn't mind. So if we could all just nod our heads for a quick moment of silence. And Pastor Findley, if you wouldn't mind.
Father, again, we thank you for this moment. We thank you for the privilege to come together in this way and to engage with one another in such an important fashion, with such an important race on the line. I pray that you would give all of us clarity of thought, clarity of speech as we lay out our different platforms. I pray that you would bless the Black Panther Party here in Louisville as they continue to do the work of revolutionizing, of liberating, of educating. And we pray for all those who will watch, that they'll receive information, that they can make an informed decision. We thank you and we honor you. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. We appreciate that. So, ladies and gentlemen, I assume we have our people in. Okay, we still have people admitted. I'm not mad at that. Join us. The layout, since we only have our two candidates, we're going to be a little more loose with the conversation. I have general questions and directed questions for each candidate. I'm gonna ask for 2 minute, 2.5 minute responses and rebuttals. You have infinite amount of, like I said, this is going to be a loose conversation, so you'll have infinite amount of response and rebuttal. I also may ask follow-up questions to certain things. I'm going to ask the candidates to pick a number 1 through 100. Say it out.
All right, I'll pick my age, 45.
I'll pick the number that I went in, 22.
22. So the number was 5, and we will start. Reverend Findley, you have the choice to be asked first question. Ladies first. Ladies first. Okay. All right. I appreciate the gentleman. All right. So, Miss Parrish-Wright, I would also like the audience to know that we are working off questions that Panthers organization came up with. Also questions that were submitted to the Panther organization and questions that will be coming through the live, just to let you know. So we're kind of off the cuff and we're organized. Miss Parrish-Wright. The Taylor situation differently than the Fisher administration.
Just come right out the gate swinging. I have a disclaimer I want to say for myself and for Pastor Findley. The reason you probably didn't get all the responses that you want is because most candidates aren't as real as we are. They're not. We live these lives. We face it every day. We're doing this work whether we're running for office or not. So with that said, I want you all to understand that we may get to certain parts that it wouldn't behoove us to answer in certain ways, because our answers will be taken and screenshot and videos and all of that and used against us if we make it through primary or even during this primary. So I want you to consider that we both have important roles in the community. We both wear different hats in the community. We both are Black, very well Black. Our Blackness should never be questioned, but we also understand the landscape of which we need to operate in. And we both accepted this because we stand with the 10-point program of the Black Panther Party. We understand it, we live it, we breathe it, and we do what we can do in our way. But also understand that we are in a place where over 70% of our voters are white. And so we need our people, not only, we have people who are helping other white candidates and they don't even need their help. We are the ones who need your support. We are the ones who need your help. And you can very much support as many candidates as you want. But when you go to vote, you need to vote for the candidate that meets where you are, that understands your life, that can connect to you. So if you are white and you're watching this, it is not for you to take this and run away with it and say that we are only doing things for Black people. We undoubtedly are going to do things for minorities and for Black people. But we are trying to be the mayor of the whole of Louisville, of the whole of Jefferson County. So our answers are relevant to the Revolutionary Black Panther Party, its membership, and our people who live in marginalized communities. I just had to say that because I just know how these things go. Mm-hmm. So to answer your question, the reason why I'm running is because it was mishandled from the get-go. It was an injustice from day one, from the moment Breonna Taylor's doors were breached the way they were, on a bogus warrant. It just shows that our leadership, again, does not bring the right people to the table, does not give us as Black people, as brown people, as poor people, due diligence when they are addressing us in our manner, in any manner. And when it comes to the judicial process, when it comes to being accosted by the police, we are more susceptible to death, to danger, to jail, and to a lifetime of problems and issues that's connected to those issues. As mayor, the first thing I would have done in Fisher's shoes, and what I've also said to Fisher, is once the evidence came out and it was clear that this was a bogus raid, I would have fired the officers and at least at the end of the day, showed the community that we do not agree with what happened and we need to be clear. Now, as a mayor, I do understand a mayor's role. He was stuck between a rock and a hard place, but I will always side with the community and with the people. Breonna Taylor was an amazing young adult, young Black woman who was doing her job, doing her work, going home and in her bed. And when she woke up, whether she was in a hallway or still in her bed, she should not have died in that police raid. We are not supposed to die in police action. Whenever those things happen, there needs to be a breakdown, a play-by-play. All the evidence should be available to the public as possible, and the public should be able to weigh in on what is happening at every juncture. That did not happen. Now, when I saw the mayor and I told him this at Injustice Square, at Jefferson Square Park, he said to me, Shameka, there's 67C. I understand it. I've been reading 67C, and I'm sure Pastor Findley have again and again and again. But there were still some measurable things that our current mayor could have done to let the public know that we're listening. You see what happened in Minneapolis when that mayor made that abrupt decision. My friend Sam Dubose was killed, and that university, the police department fired that officer. Those immediate action, it didn't stop protests. It didn't stop people from acting out, but it showed that that city and that leadership was listening to the community. So that would have been the first thing I would do. The second thing is making sure from the get-go that the family was aware. I talked to Miss Shameka Palmer herself, and she told me she was given a runaround, that when she went to the crime scene and where her daughter lived, her daughter was in that building, and they started immediately asking her questions like, did they have any problems in their relationship? They gave her the runaround from the get-go. So the lies, the lack of transparency is why we're here, and now people are playing it all about white fear. Nobody should have dealt with what Breonna Taylor dealt with. That would be my answer. That one, the family should have been made clear about everything that happened, should not have been given a runaround, and the mayor in that role and everything that's under his power should have made a huge, huge statement that we don't tolerate police abuse, police brutality in any form.
Pastor Findley, would you like to respond?
Absolutely. Well, first, again, thank you for having us, and I want to appreciate and thank Shameka for her opening words, because she's spot on in terms of this conversation being used against us. But I think both of us, I know that both of us are, we're honored to be here, and what we say here, we will answer to in any other forum or in any other space. With that being said, I would have fired the officers immediately. Now, my experience was just a little bit different. I was working in the Office of Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods during this time. I ended up quitting my role, leaving the position based off of a conversation about Breonna Taylor with the mayor and regarding the former police chief, because what I was informed of was completely, it was a lie for what really happened. And a point that Shameka brings up that is so true. Sure, there is a collective bargaining agreement in place. Part of the issue in Louisville is that agreement is negotiated behind closed doors. So when I spoke to the mayor and said the same thing, it was, first of all, we cannot continue to negotiate with the FOP behind closed doors and the community not be involved, number one, and not be informed of what's going on. Number two, you talk about that rock in a hard place. What that is that he says, and this most likely would have been the case. Once they're fired, they're going to sue, they're going to get money and get their job back. Leadership is about making hard decisions. There is a good chance all of those things would have happened. But we may not have seen, we would not have seen what we saw in 2020. And as a result, more lives be lost. Because remember the domino effect, Tyler Girth, Mr. McAtee, so on and so forth. Those are all at the feet of Greg Fisher, because he did not take a definitive and decisive action in that moment. So yes, you have to fire the officers. If they decide to sue down the road, maybe not, who knows? You've got to show the community that what happened from start to finish was a tragedy. It was criminal. It was a lack of transparency. And if you're the mayor, you cannot sacrifice the peace and the well-being of your constituents because lawyers are telling you to play the middle. That was a gross dereliction of duty. And the only answer to this is that those officers should have been fired immediately.
All right. Ms. Parrish-Wright, would you like to rebuttal?
Yeah, just to say I completely agree, and that I experienced this not once with Breonna Taylor, but with my friend Sam DuBose. That officer was acquitted twice. He eventually sued and was repaid his lost wages of $350,000. But at the end of the day, the city, we had suffered in Cincinnati when I lived there. Right before I moved to Louisville, Timothy Thomas was shot in his back in downtown Fort Rhyme. And we saw what happened when the city broke out and responded, and the city lost millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. And so I bet you when this happened with Sam DuBose, folks were like, we cannot stand that again, right? And even if people don't understand our plight as Black people, they understand the money, right? And the impact of what that means for any future revenue or tourism and things like that. But I said to Fisher, I've seen this happen. In the case of my friend Sam DuBose, $350,000 went back to that officer, but it wasn't what we spend and what we're continuing to spend. The city has countless lawsuits and pending lawsuits as a result of 2020 and more, even before then. Our being at 6th and Jefferson wasn't our first time. It was many times we had been there because of officer misconduct, because of police abuse, because of police brutality, because of police deaths. We are fighting the same fight. What it took was this dear, beautiful angel, this soul who they couldn't taint, who they really tried hard to taint, and they couldn't taint. And we got to stand up in a way, in a long way that we haven't been able to do in a long, long time. So I think that at the end of the day, we're still paying for this. We're paying for this on the front end. We're paying for it on the end. We're still going to be dealing with these lawsuits because our police and our leadership did not do what was right by the whole of city of Louisville. And that's the thing we got to think about, even when we're talking about Black people. More than often, and Tim or myself cannot speak for every Black person, but more than often, we're asking for it to be given fairness, to be treated equally, to make sure we're not even asking for revenge. When we were out there in 2020, those young people didn't say, oh, I want revenge on every officer to do it. They want to see that they're held accountable as the most protected working class. They should have been held accountable the way you and I or anyone on this call would have been. And that didn't happen. So our mayor made a mistake. He called himself an asshole during that process. He said he was a jerk. He said he didn't do what he needed to do. So Reverend Findley is right. At some point, some people were talking to him, but he wouldn't listen. But in that role as mayor, you have to make really tough decisions, and you have to be willing to make sure that they're as informed as possible and that you present as much transparency as possible. That did not happen, and it didn't happen on the side of the city. It did not happen on the side of LMPD. So that's really part of the reason why I ran, is because I want to have a decision maker in place who listens to all people and not just some.
Can I add something here, Dre? Because I think there's another point here, and it's not just how the officers were handled. So I'm putting this out here now, and I have not talked about this, but I heard through the grapevine it was going to come up. But I want to make sure that it's known. The reason why my working relationship, specifically the issue, came to an end with the city was because once I found out what was going on and got the details, I immediately went, as an employee of the city, went to Facebook and called on Mayor Fisher to fire Chief Conrad, because after the young people's terrible situation, the Boy Scouts or whatever, the Explorer program, he was already in a place where he should have been fired. When I went on social media, I put it out there publicly that Chief Conrad should be fired immediately. My phone blew up. I was ordered, so to speak, to take down the Facebook post. I refused. Conversations ensued. And that literally that day is when my relationship with the city, the working relationship, came to an end. And like Shameka, I decided to run for mayor at the Breonna Taylor Square the day that the announcement was made that no charges would be filed. That day, standing down there, I said, this is what has to happen. Because of a lack of leadership, our city has been 2 years in a position where if we had great leadership, that would not have happened. If someone would be willing to stand up and take action. So I think we're both here. I think we were making our way, period. But that really seemed like it pulled the covers back, and it was a now moment.
And I think that is a great response from both of our candidates. Next question. We've had a couple questions come in. Nothing generated.
Now, Dre, we both gonna be talking, so that 2 minutes is out the door.
No, well, that's why we didn't. That's why we preferred a more conversation setting. But we're still, feel free to debate each other and go back, because we're gonna get it. I got some questions.
I'm sure.
What I heard both of you mention leadership, and the differences in leadership. What do you think our city's problem with gun violence is? And how would your administration effectively deal with it? What are some tangible ways we can effectively deal with it within 4 years?
I'll go ahead. Wow, this is great. I love how your questions just get right to it. Usually at these spaces, they we know this is what everybody want to talk about, but we take our time. So as I was getting prepared for this meeting, I said, you know what, let me make sure that I reread the 10-point program of the Black Panther Party, make sure that I am still holding true, because that's my thing. I don't want to run on one thing, and then once I become mayor, I forget those things. And so gun violence, let me be clear. I am a victim. I am a survivor. I am someone who stopped people from shooting themselves, stopped people from shooting other people, who's been a violence interrupter her whole life, who's been that person that everyone in their family, or my family, comes to when they're contemplating violence, when they've committed violence, and trying to understand what next moves. So I'm not unfamiliar to violence. It's not a TV show for me, it's a reality, and I've committed violence. I've actually went to jail for defending myself in a relationship, and I picked up a weapon, and that gave me a violent charge. So I've seen violence on so many ends that for me, when I look at our city, I think about the hurting that people are doing. Now, we all know that root causes is the popular term for everyone. But as I said in the beginning of my message, Reverend Findley and I we live the root causes. We have no choice, right? We've made choices to put ourselves in positions to be able to help people, but I haven't escaped root causes. My family hasn't escaped root causes. My nephew, a couple months ago, was shot. I still go to the hospital when I hear about one of my family members being shot, or friends and their kids. So I cannot escape balance. The way that we can escape balance together is if we work together and we provide what's missing. What I saw in the 10-point Black Panther Party, the self-defense 10-point platform that was written in 1966, was that everything that it talks about is what holds true now. And so when I think about balance, what I saw at Injustice Square, Jefferson Square, is that our young people wanted to have a way through this, a way to understand this, a way to not be violent. And so we developed points of unity. And I want to, as mayor, develop a point of unity for all of us to sign on to, including our young people, that says things like, some of us, I'm telling my age, as always, 45, but some of us got a lot of unspoken rules through our family. My mom told me how to avoid a fight. My mom told me how to deal with bullies. My family, we talked about those things, how to get arrested, how to not get arrested, how to keep a low profile. And we kind of learn those things, those unspoken rules. I'm just not sure that they're being taught to our young people in the same way. For instance, I grew up in Over the Rhine, and it was very, very rough, even rougher than our West End that people try to claim it's the worst of all. It's not. And so in Over the Rhine, I walked to the school and I would see violence. What helped me survive that is by having survival skills. I want to have survival camps. I want to have points of unity where our young people understand you don't pull a gun. Pulling a gun or a knife or a weapon should be the last resort if you're in that place. But be trained, be a responsible gun owner, be a responsible person, because you want to survive it. And the person you're encountering, they want to survive it. And so we don't shoot up bus stops, we don't shoot up churches, we don't mess with our seniors, we don't mess with young kids. There's lots of things that we've been bred to understand that I don't think that when you look, and I'm not blaming the gaming systems. The gaming systems just play out the worst of it, but it's not being taught to them. So they're taught to, and then we see the police showing up with weapons. So everybody's taught to just react and not really think through the process and think, is this the best outcome I want? So when I talk about having mobile trauma response units, and you can read about some of this on my website, Shameka, Parrish-Wright.com. But when I talk about having that, it's because I saw what was missing in those communities when I lived in them. When I lived at Hemlock and Southern, I hardly saw any elected officials coming through there. Our street didn't get plowed when it was time to get plowed. There wasn't a lot of access to things. You had a few churches who did food banks, but there was a lot missing. So I'll end this with this. We have to have tangible solutions for our young people to start to deal with violence. And programming and metro government can only do so much. It has to be in partnerships with Revolutionary Black Panther Party, with all the other groups that are doing work that is active, even if it's just with 25 youth a day. I have real plans to deal with that, and I plan to introduce that as I go. But that includes our seniors, it includes our faith leaders, it includes everyone being a part of ending the violence that we see.
I appreciate that, Ms. Parrish-Wright. Now, I'm giving y'all an inch. Don't take a mile now, y'all. You throw it. Come on, we got to be respectful. So, Pastor Findley, I'm going to give you 10 minutes. No, I'm just...
Right. Get my sermon ready.
Okay. Go ahead, Pastor Findley.
This is a very, very important question, and I want to answer it a certain way. If you go to my website, there's details on there in terms of public safety, all that good stuff. But I want to answer this question because it's one that I get more than anything else. And I want to be very clear about this. What we're seeing in the city of Louisville is not an accident. It is not based off of the kids are badder, the parents are worse. I know that those are narratives that are floating out there, but that is not, it's not as simple as that. Louisville, and I'm going to back this up with what has been spoken publicly. Louisville actively defunded programs, defunded certain preventative things that were in place that have had a cascading effect and have affected generations of kids over the last 15 years. When I was in the Office of Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods, one of the things that it was known is that in the office, there was a shoestring budget. Now, they were created to deal with prevention, deal with gun violence as a public health crisis, all those wonderful buzzwords. But there was never resources that was given that would allow not only that office to move, not only that office to impact and do the work of prevention, but other things were not done. Then gun violence, not just in 2020, 2021, and 2022, then gun violence started happening more and more. What we saw in 2021, I sat in council chambers, and it was Councilwoman Paula McCraney who made this statement to all city council leaders. If they're watching, they were there, they'll back this up. She said, we have to take responsibility. For years, we defunded or did not fund OSHA. We took money away from different programs. We put money into policing and all these different things. And a lot of what we're seeing right now I'm paraphrasing, a lot of what we're seeing right now, it is at our feet. As mayor, what we have to do, what our administration has to do, what the city council has to do, what the mayor has to rally and lead in doing is reinvest, refund neighborhoods, refund community-focused programs. We have to have a new vision for investment in Louisville. One of the things that I am, as a nonprofit leader, we've got to view, and this is something that I'm very passionate about, that nonprofit, grassroots nonprofits, along with other organizations doing the work on the ground, should be viewed as infrastructure. What I mean by that, in the same way we got to fix sidewalks, in the same way we got to repair streetlights, we ought to be resourcing those who are on the ground doing the work. And there ought to be a centralized place where we're removing red tape and doing what needs to be done, not going in, watching what's being done, and then coming out and replicating it in local government, but bringing resources to individuals and businesses and nonprofits that are doing the work. As a pastor for the last 15 years, not only have I seen it, as a pastor, I'm at each point. I'm dealing with things that are about to blow up. I'm dealing with young people that are in that cycle. I'm dealing with violence that leads to death and doing funerals, post-counseling, all of those different things. Over the last 2 or 3 years, the amount of funerals that I've had to perform of young people it's heartbreaking. At some point, we've got to deal with that fact that the city has not done its due diligence, and it has not done the proper task of refunding these particular works. The last thing that I'll say, oh, wait, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to ask a follow-up question. As mayor, you stated that you would refund a lot of these programs that have been taken funding from. Where would you get, how much would you fund into this, and where would these reallocations of funds come from?
From the police. Absolutely, no question. We have this exorbitant police budget. And again, I'm on, and I know that people who support me and those who strategize with me, they always get kind of, when I start talking about defund the police. But I refuse to believe that we don't know how to separate the two. Defunding the police does not mean abolish the police. Defunding the police means to reallocate all of this money. You see, we have one candidate, and we might as well go there, that he had an issue, unfortunate, terrible situation that happened to him. The first thing he did right after that, he said, fully fund the police. That is a knee-jerk reaction that we've had in this city for too long. So I would look at that police budget. I would look at within metro government, things that we're funding. You see, the history of Louisville is that we always spend money on stuff we don't need. I'm not even going to talk about the Louisville Fountain in the middle of the Ohio River. All of these different things that we spend so much money on, but we're not being proactive. We're being reactive. And it's time we have a leader that understands we've got to take that and we've got to fund all of these wonderful, I think about Evolve 502. And I know we're not talking about education, but when you talk about Evolve 502 and the work that they do, there is no reason why they should have been operating with the kind of budget that they've had to operate with. And now they've got money because now the headlines say, oh, Louisville's so bad, it's so this, it's so that. So imagine if you have visionary leadership that understands that we have people on the ground right now. I'm afraid that when we talk about mental health, and we've got Centerstone, and they're doing all this wonderful stuff, and they're going to be the mental health providers with them. Well, here's the question. Has Centerstone even consulted with it? I'm not going to Centerstone, 7 counties. I was on the board. But I'll say this anyway. Have we actually talked to Black mental health providers to be I know we've got a couple, but even the ones that are a part of that are sounding the alarm like, hey, y'all, they're trying to get this thing done real fast. It's just the same cycle. So we've got to open it up for community. If you're going to talk about addressing gun violence, we've got to make sure that our youth are at the table. One of the things that I've been doing for years. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, I'm sorry. I had to turn the timer on y'all. Y'all being black in here. No, I'm just, I appreciate the timers, but I did turn the timer on. So we're going to go to 2 minutes because we got a lot.
Are you for real?
I know y'all got a lot that you want to get in, but I'm getting questions coming in as we're going. And I got a follow up for Shameka about this same subject.
Okay.
What does we've heard through your platform that you've talked about reallocating the budget as well. What does a budget under your administration look like?
So thank you. I did put up the church finger. Reverend Findley and I are passionate about this, and I hope you all see the love of our city and the love of solutions. So I am a solutions-based person, and I want to answer part of that last question is, we will find the money. Also, Louisville Metro has a lot of I call them pin rolling cushy positions where people literally have been grandfathered in, or because of who they know and who their family is, they're in these $100,000 positions and they don't do the work that it's called for. So we can find that money within the budget. We will find the money. We don't lay off police officers. We don't lay off librarians. We don't close community centers. We don't close pools. We don't take away from the things that communities need and have these positions where people aren't really doing anything. When I come in, we have to restructure metro government. Metro government includes the funding. There's we have a great equity, racial equity on paper, but it does not play out in the hiring practices. Louisville Metro government has over 6,000 employees, and many of them are doing the bulk of the work, and they have supervisors and managers who aren't doing much, who are always gone, always on vacation, then I don't think you need that position. And so that is a place where we're working on now a people's agenda budget, where we'll show what the current budget is and how my administration will use that money and allocate and move money around. I looked it up, and you can all look it up. The police chief is the highest paid person in Louisville Metro government. The mayor makes around $130,000. The police chief makes $240,000, and she has people under her. And there's a bunch of people in this $100,000 range, which you will know if you've been trying to work in Louisville for the past 25 years. It's hard to get a decent job over $40,000 a year. And you have people who currently work for our court system, who are on food stamps and medical, and we have people who work for Louisville Metro who are still qualifying for benefits. So there's a problem with the pay structures and the way things are set up. And guess what? Our mayor has primarily been hands off of that. The person who's really running a lot of that is, what I'm hearing, is the deputy mayor, Ellen Hessen. So that person in that position is helping to set the salaries, helping with the hiring practices. And that is where we, as anybody that's going to be the next mayor, has to get in and rearrange that. That is set up for failure. That stops us from uniting the other 8+ cities. That stops a great deal because of the way the management and the money has already been spent. So between the being sued so many times, paying out lawsuits, paying for LMPD's misconduct, the positions that really need to go away, the departments who really aren't really doing much. Between doing that, we should save quite a bit of money to reallocate to those funds. And I know that some of this is set by state statute, so the police chief's salary and the mayor's salary, we have to deal with that in another way, but we can reallocate funds. I totally agree. And the police should want us to do this, because the police told us, and Dre, you was in one of those meetings as we were co-chairs of the Kentucky Alliance. The police told us that we're not lawyers, we're not therapists, we're not social workers. So that means you don't have what you need to take care of all our problems. We cannot keep dumping all our societal needs on our police department and our court system. They have shown us again and again that they're not able to adequately service and handle those things. So I'm kind of wrapping both of the questions up at once and saying, we will find the money. We will get in there and reassess. The first 100 days will be about eliminating some of those unnecessary positions and departments, and about uniting our whole county, uniting our city in a way that is transparent. We will have monthly meetings. I plan to have a transition team and accountability team made up of all these people we've been talking about and more, to make sure that I'm holding true to everything that I ran on. No one mayor will do it by themselves, and I'm not just going to hire Ellen Hessen to handle it by herself.
Y'all gonna make me start muting you. I don't want to be rude. Y'all gonna make me start putting mute on there. Everybody want their question answered, so let's just try to roll through this. No, I love it. I love the passion. I love the intelligence, because a lot of times we get candidates who aren't so knowledgeable about the roles sometimes that they're picking to be in. We've got a question here. It says, and I'm going to ask a two-part question because we're talking about finance and economics, and anybody could jump in on this first, but I am keeping it to 2 minutes. All right, so here we go. It seems our Black leadership community is divided, especially during the civil unrest. What do you think can be done better as the Black community to unite our leadership? And I'm going to give a quick example because it ties into another question that is popular in the community right now about the TIF right now for the West End. So that question came in as the TIF, are you for or against it? And the second part of that question is, how do we get everybody on board as far as Black leadership goes?
So the TIF, I am not on board as presently constructed, and there's several different reasons. Number one, there's a lack of transparency around what's actually at stake or what's being sort of instituted with the TIF. If you look around the country at different TIFs, especially those that are similar to what is being proposed in Louisville, all have led to displacement. Not just gentrification, but they've led to displacement. That is a major, major, major concern in Louisville, because the TIF, while it does offer benefits to those who own their homes, a large majority of where that TIF is being proposed are with renters. And this question has been proposed to David James and others, and the answer has continued to be, we're still working on it, which means we don't have a plan, which means we know what's going to happen, but we got to move forward with that. And I'll also tell people that one of our opponents is the person that's at the center of this particular TIF. So no, I am not a supporter. This just, again, reinforces the reason that we've got to have a better strategy in the West End and in other areas as it relates to not just home ownership, but affordable rental with a pathway to home ownership. Because if not, displacement is going to come. And I think, when you talk about the people who are at the table, you've got to make sure that you know who's doing what. And that's why I want to connect this, again, my answer there, to the original, in terms of Black leadership. A lot of what's going on in Louisville, and I've been venting the last month or so, especially in this race, when it comes to Black leadership. What we're doing, and again, I know we're supposed to be debating this stuff, and we'll debate, Shameka. We got time coming to where we're going to be debating coming up, but tonight we're going to probably say the same stuff. A lot of what we're doing right now is we're uncovering stuff that's been going on. I am a Black preacher. I've been in this community.
2 minutes, Reverend.
Oh, we're getting my good point, Dre. Come on, man.
Give me 2 minutes. We got a lot going on. And
all right. That was the Lord. He didn't want me to go there, because I'm about to go there to Black preachers. Speaking
of debate, I do want this to be an open conversation. So consider the 2 minutes as a structure. But if you all would like to jump in and address each other's response, I definitely will allow that. But also be respectful for each other. That's the benefit of having 2 candidates instead of 12. So we can use that. So we're gonna play with that. Shameka, 2 minutes and a response.
Pastor Findley, I feel you. This is where you all are gonna see us more connected. We aren't different. I mean, I filed first. I asked Findley to come to my side. He's asked me to come to his side. It looks like we're just gonna duke it out until we get through May 17th.
There's still time for the Lord to lead you.
But if whoever makes it through, I'm going to support you, Findley, if you make it through. I'm pretty sure I am, but we're going to make this happen, right? So I totally agree. The reason why I signed the petition for the historic Black neighborhoods is because it wasn't clear. There's a 20-year implementation for the TIF, and everything Pastor Findley outlined is something that I agree with. There has to be transparency. Our city cannot go forward without transparency on every major deal, on every new community building opportunity. All of those things make a difference, because we have a large renting part of our society. Our city has a great deal of renters, and we have a lot of home ownership in the West End. That 60% of that is actually from people who do not live in the West End. As somebody who's birthed kids in the West End, who's lived in the West End, who understands the environmental racism happening in the West End, whose heart condition was triggered living in the West End, it is important to me that anything that comes through here keeps that community up front, keeps it transparent. And when I talk to people, when I knock on doors and I ask them, hey, what do you know about this TIF? And they can't tell me, and that tells me not enough work has been done on all ends. If a regular person walking up and down Broadway can't tell me what the TIF is, it's too important, it's too big to be so secretive. So Black leadership, we have different types of Black leaders here. And I'm somebody with all my roles. I've had to navigate all levels, but I've definitely been the homeless, the poor person who was out of work. I've been the working middle class, which is what I consider myself now. And it's still kind of weird, because it just means I can't get in no free lines or nothing. And then also there's a level of Black people who the issues don't touch in the same way. Black people can't be racist, but Black people can be privileged. And I get what happened. Some people are trying to get ahead, and so they try to attach themselves to these money people who don't need their help. It baffles me that so many Black leaders are getting behind a candidate that does not need their help, when you have people who are from the ground up and ready.
It's 2 minutes, girl. Y'all gonna make me mute y'all.
Okay.
I had a follow-up. I don't want to be the school teacher start muting people. But I think that speaks to the ideas and the love and the passion that comes with this, which is what we don't really always experience with candidates running for political office. So I do have to congratulate you two on that. I love it. Shameka, you brought up a good point a few minutes ago when you said you and Findley, Pastor Findley, have talked about joining each other's campaign. And I think one of the biggest questions in the community right now, as we talk about the split of Black leadership and sometimes the Black community in essence, because attitude reflects leadership. Why would you not join Pastor Findley's race, and what makes your campaign, I guess, more viable in your opinion? What is it?
Thank you. That's the $1 million question. I respect Pastor Findley. We've known each other even before we decided to run. I was the first, of course, and he decided to do it on Mother's Day. But I am a Black woman who is running for all women, for all people, for our people. I just think that I have a reach that's beyond Pastor Findley's. I feel like on a lot of things we're neck and neck, but because of my varied history and now I'm coming from behind the scenes, I'm connected to a lot more people and a lot more things across Jefferson County, across Louisville, and across our state that people are taking for granted. And so those people, even who work for under Nicholson, who work under the current administration, are supporting me, but can't support me publicly because it's so controversial right now. And so I feel like I have a great push. Our platforms are similar. We both want the same things. And I think that I could push this. Now, I do not look as good as him, and I'm not tall, dark, and handsome in a suit. But I am somebody who has a proven record of getting people elected, who run programs to improve lives, who manage millions of dollars to help bring to save our city, who continues to do that work on so many different levels. That's what it is for me. It's the reach. I think my reach is deeper than his, but that is the only place where we've been split on that part of. And there's issues that Pastor Findley can't stand with that I can, and I have a proven history of standing. So you can go back 5 years, and I'm still Shameka saying the same old things, pushing the same old social justice issues as I've been. Now I'm in the role of a candidate, and I'm ready to help lead our city forward. But I want Pastor Findley right with me. We can't make promises during a campaign, so I can't promise a cabinet position at this point, but I would definitely, in anything I'm doing moving forward, it includes my Black men, it includes my Black people, and it definitely includes Pastor Findley.
Oh, now she came in under the 2 minutes. Okay, Pastor Findley, sort of the same question, but different. What issues separate your campaign from Ms. Parrish-Wright's?
I think this is going to be the first time that we actually completely disagree with one another. And I can't believe Shameka would even just do me like that, because no, I absolutely believe I have a greater reach. I have much respect for Shameka. She knows this. I've said it over and over. There are certain things that even with this race, there are things that I will not do that I'm going to probably do with other candidates, but I'm not going to do with her just based off my tremendous respect for her. So she always has my respect. But on the issue of policy and where I'm seeing things, for every reason that Shameka just laid out, I would say, no, I have a larger reach. I have a bigger base. And again, like Shameka, I didn't just show up in 2020. One of the things that I've been doing more and more, and it's sort of a challenge in terms of, because I'm not used to doing that, but laying my record out there. 2020 wasn't my first protest. It wasn't, things that I did in 2021, community-wise, was not my first time. I've been working in this community for 15, 20 years, and my work speaks for itself. As a pastor, I think out of everyone in this race, I deal with people on a daily basis, more than on every level. When it comes to running a church, when it comes to running a nonprofit, when it comes to having experience in this administration at a state level, I've been there. So, no, I think my reach and my appeal And I'm seeing that. And I think in Louisville, people are very leery about coming out and saying where they are, and they could be both lying to both of us. Who knows? But I think that I would love to have Shameka with me a press conference Monday where she's coming on board and we're going together, because I think, as I've said to her privately, and I'll say it here publicly, that to get to where we need to get to, there's certain conversations we're going to have. And we've been having them, and I got one more push in me, so she don't know it, but I'm going to be taking her back to lunch because, I think we've got to talk about this.
So let me rebuttal right quick.
Go ahead.
I agree that we've met several times, and we're looking at this from every angle. We've seen politics across and far, and what happens when two really good candidates don't come together. We understand that the West End vote is very valuable and it's at stake. But the West End vote is split. You have people, Black people, who are professing their support for Greenberg, who are professing their support for Nicholson. I don't know why. It's only the money, right? And we have to have people who are willing to turn away from money and turn on the fact that we understand the issues that we're going to bring the people to the table. And I plan to do that in every way. That's what my work has been with the Kentucky for the Commonwealth, the Kentucky Alliance, Kentucky Jobs with Justice. Has always been about bringing people together across lines of differences. We have a lot of lines of differences, and not so much as Reverend Findley and mine, as it is in poor people, middle class people, people who are very privileged and who are living a whole different life in Louisville than many of us live. And that problem, exasperated by the fact that the merger cut a great deal of communities out of what could be promising for them, is a real deal that we have to deal with together. And so I have to lay this on the line. I am a Black woman. We've never had that. But Black women lead our institutions, hold up our churches, hold up every faction of our city is Black women behind the helm holding that up. I'm stepping out here to be a Black woman that did that. And one of the things I said to Reverend Findley is, if I was Sadiqa, would you be saying that to me? And he said no. But I supported Sadiqa when she lost her countywide race as judge. So we all have our heels to climb. We all have people that we need to gain. I supported Keisha Dorsey in her campaign for free. I didn't charge her to advise her campaign. I've been behind the scenes so much that that people are taking that for granted. The only thing I lack is the money, and that's what we both are working on to get. But when we talk about people power, that means that the next mayor has to be inclusive and can't just come from one side of the camp. Has to be ready to bring the missing voices to the table, and I represent that. Can I do a rebuttal, Dre?
I guess in your rebuttal, I'm going to let you go first on this question. In your rebuttal, and this was directed at you too as well, as Shameka got the last one. What I've heard both of you all on the campaign trail, obviously, and I admire both of you all's words and vision for the city. One stark difference that I have seen is that Ms. Parrish-Wright, you have always said that you assumed to run for mayor during the hiring of Erica Shields. You were in Atlanta door knocking, and that was your call. Mr. Findley, I think I've heard you say that you weren't initially wanting to run for mayor, that you wanted to run for office, but it wasn't really mayor. So I guess the question would be, I guess, why mayor? And is that something?
No, and that's
okay.
Yeah. So when I came on to the as faith-based liaison for Ocean, I had a conversation with Pastor Vincent James. That was 2019, early 2019 maybe. I had told him that one day that this was what was going to happen. The whole Breonna Taylor, what I just talked about, that day, that move was for right now. That's where the whole our time is now, all that. So this was always a part of, my family knows this. I've had conversations with them. So the reason why, I guess to answer your question directly, why mayor? Because again, as mayor in any city, here in Louisville, the city that I love, the mayor's role, responsibility and impact as the mayor is working with individuals, building administration, is so vital to the quality of life of constituents, of citizens. More so even now, when you talk about the widening racial wealth gap, when you talk about finally seeing the possibility of reparations, when you talk about dealing with public safety, public health, housing, houselessness, all these different things, while a mayor is not a one-person show, they have tremendous impact on the day-to-day living of everyday Louisvillians. And for me, this is the moment where we've got to have liberated, progressive thinking individuals who are able to get things done, work with a wide array of people. And that's what I've done. My platform, my experience, that's what I do every single day. That I'm not doing so in an office by myself, but these are things that I do with a wide array of people. And for me, the mayor, that position is one that can serve the community and lift our city in a way that it's never been lifted before. And I'll say this, and I'll be quiet. But I know Shameka talked about us splitting the vote. I don't think we're going to split the vote. But here's what's going to happen. When you go back to 2010, you look at the sitting council president, David Tandy. He was the sitting council president. He was absolutely blown out of the water by Greg Fisher. He won, I think, 384 precincts out of 518. You know what he did? He didn't split the vote with David Tandy. He got a significant portion of the vote in the West End and had a large base outside of the West End. And Mr. Tandy, again, who had all the experience, he did not carry the West End the way that he probably needed to carry to win. So although we may not split the vote, if we're going to be completely honest, any portion of the black vote is going to absolutely affect both of us. That is a fact. I'm sitting here right now. I had this done. A precinct data and statistic report for me, done. It is not biased. It tells that, numbers don't lie. So the fact is, this is what we're looking at. It's not about splitting. It's about any sort of portion. And that's why the Right Reverend Shameka Parrish-Wright should be coming on over.
That's 2 minutes. Miss Parrish-Wright, I'll give you 2 minutes to rebuttal, and we'll move on to the next one.
I appreciate that, and very familiar with the statistical data as I've ran campaigns, countywide campaigns. I also ran for office for a short term in 2019 for a special election. So this is not my first time. I'm not new to electoral politics, especially to the West End. The thing is that we're still running up against money, Reverend Findley and I. We're running against money, and we're running against telling people who don't have a lot to vote against the money, to do something different so that we can spread it out, we can make things more equitable, and we can create more fairness, which is what our city is lacking. And so when I look at what happened in 2010, I'm going to be real with you all. I jumped the Kool-Aid, the Fisher Kool-Aid back then. I was working for Kentuckians for the Commonwealth, and I voted for Fisher because he talked about bringing jobs and economic development and all those cute words. And then my husband voted for Tandy. The only reason why I didn't vote for Tandy is because it was around the time Louis Coleman was calling for me to stand with him during the Cornish development that was happening at 4th Street Live. And I went out there and stood with him. And then sometimes I saw that Tandy was kind of siding with the Cornish folks. And that was my decider on why I wasn't voting. It was because of his actions. Not that I didn't think he could be mayor, not that any of that. It was because I am always with the poor people. I'm always with the people. And that was not a people move. And now look at 4th Street Live now. It's dried out. It's not everything that it was promised to be. I actually missed when it was the Galleria, but it is what it is. So for me, when I'm looking at our people in the not just in the 9 neighborhoods in the West End, in Newburgh and in Daytown and all these other places, Portland, all these South End, all these communities, they are tired of people just giving them the runaround. But I'm trying to tell them that this is a people power moment, that the primaries are not a time to just throw your eggs in one basket with any person that's coming through that's blue. That cannot happen. We definitely want a strong Democratic candidate to come through the primaries, because the Republicans are gearing up their forces and they want to take that seat back. So you definitely need somebody that's a deal breaker, that's across. And I just don't think Greenberg has it. He's unknown, and the people he's attached his wagon to are people whose name that people will be looking for on the ballot and not his. So I'm telling people that you get to decide who is your mayor going for in this mayor strong city. We are still a mayor strong city, and they're trying to take our powers away. I've already heard that if Findley or I get elected, they're trying to move for the state to have more power over our police. They are gunning and preparing themselves. What are we as Black people preparing ourselves for? Are we preparing ourselves to say, I want this candidate because this candidate aligns with me and not because this candidate is rich? This candidate is taking help and donations from people that they don't need. That should show you right there that they're going to be another status quo candidate. And anybody that tells me I've been in charge and I've been in office for 40 years, like Nicholson, and your people are still suffering and reaching out to me and asking me, can you bring us better wages and things like that? You're part of the problem too, sir. What we represent is a change and a path forward, and we're both on the path forward document that has never been seen. And so I think that Black people have to sit down, have to go back to the drawing board, have to treat this like any other civil rights movement and push for representation that matters. We matter in a time now moving forward.
That's 2 minutes. I appreciate that. And just for the record, I like 4th Street better when it was the gallery as well. A lot more video games. In the past, we have had police chiefs publicly state that they work for the mayor and not the citizens of Louisville. Question, that's just a statement. First question is, who do you think the police chief works for or should work for? And the follow-up question being, what can we do to increase a spirit of cooperation between the Black community and LMPD? And that's a toss-up for either candidate.
Well, Coach Shameka, I don't disagree in terms of the police chief not working for the people. The way that I look at it is that the police chief does work for the mayor and serves the people. And in my opinion, if the mayor does not have a community-minded focus, then whatever the police chief, as we're seeing right now, we're going to get the results that we've been getting. So, the police chief is a paid employee, and it is the mayor's responsibility, honestly, to direct, to hire, to do all these different things as it relates to the police department. Now, policing in Louisville has to change. And a lot of what we see in Louisville is the culture of policing, the practice of policing, the leadership in policing has been what it's been for the last several years. Going back to Chief Conrad, it's a lack of transparency. It's a lack of accountability. It's corruption that's in place. I mean, the fact that Erica Shields was hired when she was hired in this city just shows a lack of disconnect. A lack of connection, an absolute disconnection with the people. It's got to be one of the worst hires, in my opinion, that we've seen because of the context of what we were dealing with. So once I'm mayor, one of the things that I'm going to do immediately is fire the police chief. No question. And then I'm going to bring the community in along with stakeholders, and we're going to choose the next police chief based off of record and based off of a transparent process. That's how you start to repair the disconnect between community and police. But community has to see police being held accountable. It has to see that there's a culture of accountability within all of LMPD. That's when you start to see, I think, the healing begin. And I think we haven't had that up to this point.
Ms. Parrish-Wright, did you have a rebuttal for that? A quick rebuttal? Not quick, but.
said quick and threw me off. No, I do believe, the mayor is in a management role. Our Metro Council makes the laws, and the mayor helps manage it all. And anybody that the mayor hires in a director level, management level, it's their job to carry out that mission. The police, fourth form of our metro government. The problem is, in our Derby city, the police are equivalent to the horse riding the man. The police are in total control. They navigate so much, and it's going to take some time and willpower to take some of that power back. First, we have to give them other resources and things that they need. Then we have to have decisions made in a way that the public are able to weigh in and make a difference. And so for me, the police chief is to me a servant of the people. I manage the police. I hire and fire the police chief, but that police chief is to serve the people. I mean, why else is she the highest paid person in metro government, even more than the mayor? Over $100,000 more than our mayor is what our police chief makes. So when you put somebody in a position like that, that ain't just one person over them. That's the community. That's why she goes to community meetings. I doubt if she's really on beat at that level. She's probably going to meetings, representing the city, traveling all over, bringing her people. I heard they're advertising in Atlanta, Georgia now, like, come here, come police here. I am somebody that almost became a police officer. I have families that is police officers. So I understand the role of police, but they were never meant to lead our city in the way that they're leading our city. It has bred corruption. It has bred discontent in every way fashionable. So I think that we need to make sure it's a public process, that we all need to know about who's being hired. I think Levita Chavis, who came up through the ranks, started as a beat cop, worked herself through the ranks, was kind of what I hear was forced to retire. She would have made a better choice as police chief than me. But when I asked about the decision made by 7 of our community leaders, why they chose Chief Erica Shields, they said she had the best answer when it came to race. Do any of us see that being displayed right now? I want people that's better than just on paper, that their actions, like Reverend Findley said, the track record, their history is measurable so that we can make the best informed choices. So as mayor, I want to bring in a chief that is from us, that understands us, and that can help us start on the path of healing. But we're not there yet because there hasn't been enough police accountability. And even police officers agree there should be accountability across board. So we got a lot of places to start from. I'm ready to get to work.
That's right. Pastor Findley, a question came in. This one is directed to you, but I would like to hear from both candidates. How do you translate effectively to different demographics? Because we all know that the mayor isn't just the mayor, even though we're having a more Black agenda focused debate right now. We know that the mayor is the mayor of all of Louisville, and that the mayor would need to translate into different demographics. And you both talked about a base, having a wide base. So, Pastor Finn, I would like you to start. And how important is it for the next Black mayor to translate into different demographics, and how does your campaign, or how will your administration do the same?
Well, it's very important. And I would say, the answer first, yes, it's very important. Have to do that. You got to be able to communicate and articulate what it is that you're wanting to do, and create the narrative for different demographics, different people, different sections of the city, whatever the case may be. So yeah, it's very important. I don't know if people know what a pastor does, but a part of what I do every week is communicate, articulate, and translate to a wide range of people every week, whether it is from the pulpit, whether it's in the community, whether it is through nonprofit work, my work with, HIV support, whether it is dealing with a wide range of things. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to do what I've been doing. The reason why I have a wide base, the reason why I have more than just Black people or these people over here, is because that's what I do every single day. I'd like to think that my work speaks for itself as it relates to being able to communicate to anybody, being able to clearly lay out plans, being able to lead anyone and operate with a vision and move large groups because I want people to understand that you've got to be able to move people along and be able, in being transparent, you've got to be able to communicate in a way that touches people. I think when it comes to communicating, that's what I do. And I'm looking forward to doing it in this role.
Do you, question follow-up for you, Pastor Findley, before Ms. Parrish-Wright answers. When we talk about base and expanding to different demographics, seeing as Ms. Parrish-Wright is a woman and a Black woman, do you think that that makes her base potentially broader than yours, than you can reach?
No, I have Black women part of my base. I have a lot of Black women part of my base. I have a lot of Black women and I have a lot of white women. I have Carla Deering, who was a mayoral candidate, who is now a part of the team. I have Sadiqa Reynolds, Black woman, who is the president of the Urban League. I have Tara Epps, who is 1619 Gathering Place. So we both have bases, but no, I don't think that that's an unfair advantage, or not unfair. I don't think that's an advantage, rather, that Shameka would have that I won't have. And I pastor a Black church, which means that there's a lot of women in the church too. So no, I don't think it's no, it's not.
And before we move on, before I let Shameka rebuttal, I just want to say what I heard. I heard Black 6 times and white once. So when we talk about demographic and base, I just wanted to point that out because somebody said that in the comments as well.
Oh, I can, if you want, I can put in the chat all of the white too. I'm on the Revolutionary Black Panther Zoom, so I'm talking about Black folks. But we need to if you want me to go down the white groups,
we got it. For the
if you want me to go down the white groups, I can do that.
Ms. Parrish-Wright, would you like to rebuttal?
Because there's refugee and immigrants too, and I ain't even got to that yet.
Yeah, I meet people where they are. Every role has been about doing that. I currently sit on the La Casita Center board. I was on the Hispanic Latino Coalition board. I've always been about bridging the Black and brown divide. My work with KFTC, doing not just development work, but voter engagement work, was about bridging a rural and urban divide. And I definitely want to make sure that I'm working with women. I help women get elected. I help women get on boards and commissions. I train women. I train people from all walks of life. But that is one of the focus, is making sure that women, especially women and marginalized women, are prepared for leadership. But a real leader creates more leaders. I actually visited Pastor Findley's church. He does have a lot of women. I did joke with him and say that, he is a single pastor. So that, that brings its own lot. And I almost married a pastor. So I also know what it's like to be engaged to an ordained minister and all the things that come at them. So I commend Pastor Findley for holding those hats. I just wear way more hats than him. I do it because I am a woman and I am a Black woman who is always forced in leadership positions, even if I don't want them, who's been in many spaces where I'm the only Black, I'm the only woman, and who carries her weight, who carries the voices, who makes sure that she holds true to our immigrant children, to our refugee children. I got fired from one of my first jobs in Louisville, working at a plastic injection mold company, because there was a lot of Bosnian refugees there. And I talked to them about how much I made versus how much they were making. After years, I was still coming in making more than them. And so I have put my job and myself on the line time and time again, not just for Black people, but for brown people, but for poor white people. And I even mentioned my work with the Bell Project. This is work beyond the Bell Project, since people think that I just showed up during the Justice for Breonna Taylor movement. All of my work, and I just chose to be behind scenes. I chose to help women get elected. I chose to help work with Black and brown bridges and making sure that folks get their needs met. I chose to make sure that we improve our translation services. I help people who are going to court. I help people in so many ways. It's 2 minutes is not enough time to name. But I will tell you, the best thing that I do is I'm open. I'm ready. I receive people. And I also have created for other Black women who are out here navigating the city and learning and growing. Everything I do has been about improving the lives of Louisvillians. That includes our international immigrant community, and they're growing in so many ways. Every World Fest, every cultural event, every soccer game, everything that I attend, I'm trying to be as inclusive as possible, and I will have them at the decision-making table. And I actually have people who have English as a second language a part of my mayoral team. We have over 34 people on our team, and some of them are English-speaking and immigrant.
That's 2 minutes. I wanted to. We will definitely come back to that. Our time is winding down, and we have a few more questions that are coming in. I want to make sure that we give our viewers the respect that we at least get to touch on the questions. To move back to policy, how would a good administration combat gentrification practices in West Louisville and other areas of urban renewal in poor communities?
Ask it one more time. I'm sorry, you cut out.
I'm sorry. How would a good administration combat gentrification practices in West Louisville and other areas of urban renewal in poor communities?
Well, it's putting policy in place and putting what I call watchdog advocates in areas that are susceptible to gentrification and displacement. But I want to make sure that we touch on this point too, and it's something that I'm also very passionate about. When you talk about in marginalized communities, one of the things that we have in Louisville right now, when you talk about gentrification, displacement, but that's not the only part of the conversation. When you talk about people who are living in terrible conditions within marginalized communities, a lot of that is because of slumlord landlords, out of state slumlord landlords. If there is not decisive action taken to reclaim properties, if there is not policy put in place, and again, this is not just a mayoral thing, this is going to be city council as well, but it's something that I'm crafting right now. If we don't deal with those things, I believe that there is an active plan right now that we see, not just I believe, it's fact. Properties are being bought up and then they're being set. They're being completely protected until development is ready to come in. And then those areas are being put in a position to be built up and then push community out. And we've got to have someone who understands that and who is going to put the kind of parameters and policy in place to stop that. One of the things that I want to do is, and I've said this publicly, is that when you talk about out-of-state landlords, I think we've got to find them, and we've got to keep finding them until they either fix it up or relinquish the property. One of the reasons why, when you talk about developers, Black developers, that want to come into the West End and Newburgh and do certain things, but they're being blocked, is because the people that own the land, people that own the structures, have no thought, have no plan with bringing any kind of economic development. If we know that's going on, we're going to have to get the best minds to the table and figure out ways around that, because if not, we're going to see what I believe is happening in the West End right now, and that's more and more groups coming in, purchasing property, buying land, and remember, so many people are renting, so their options are very, very small. We're going to have some protections put in place where we're not allowing people to come in from out of town and just make these sort of sweeping decisions that are affecting the community in a negative way.
Thank you, Reverend Findley. Ms. Parrish-Wright, same question.
I thought about this, like, we get 2 minutes, but your questions are so powerful and loaded. It's hard to just stay within that parameter. I want to say that we need to depend on our nonprofits in a real way. Nonprofits help to alleviate and dismantle the root causes. Redlining is one of the root causes to why the West End is the way it is and why other communities have been underdeveloped. I've been seeing a conversation on Twitter where people are talking about merger and how, there's issues with that and how people in the small cities feel disconnected because of merger. And so we do a lot of things to make them look grand and big and great at press conferences and on paper. But what plays out is that more families and marginalized communities continue to suffer and carry the weight of that on their shoulders, on their backs. And so I want Louisville to be successful and sustainable. To be sustainable, we have to enhance air quality, protect resources, have eco-friendly practices, support technology. I'm also supportive of renters unions, environmental groups, making sure that they have what they need. Metro government cannot do it all by itself. A mayor will not do it all by themselves, but they can appoint people. So appointees matters to zoning boards and commissions and planning boards so that folks can have more insight on what is happening. I know Pastor Findley talks about making public transit free and make it rideable, make it usable, improve it for the workers, improve it for the routes for those with disabilities before people can see it as viable. If it's not free every month, I would like to have it free every quarter so people can plan to use public transit and use that to support the businesses in the West End, the restaurants, help them build their capacity. Most of the organizations just need administrative help work with them so that they can get in $1 million contracts. They can't get them because a lot of the same old groups suck up all the money and then they don't offer more capacity to those groups. That impacts the West End. What makes us successful is our cities and towns are connected, working, listening, and playing together. That's our reality. Building on our economic strengths, encouraging and supporting affordable housing. I want to have a department for food justice that's just going to work on making sure we improve food justice in the West End and in the other marginalized communities. So tangible solutions, and the community would be involved into making those decisions happening. I don't want to act like I got all the answers because I don't.
It's 2 minutes. I know you definitely can't answer it all in 2 minutes. We are getting to our bottom portion of the afternoon. So I have one more generalized question, and then I have a few directed questions that have come in. Some that we've had before the broadcast and some that have come in that are directed directly towards our two candidates. So before we get to those, I'm gonna ask this last general one, and then we'll get into, I guess, a lightning round. Put you in the hot seat for these questions that are coming in. One of our viewers asked, pull it back up. Okay, there it is. One of our viewers asked, where do the candidates stand on abortion and transgender rights in school sports and in bathroom assignments?
On me? Okay. My stance on abortion has been the same since I got into this race, and even before now that I've communicated from the church. I think that it's a woman's right to choose, period. I remember saying that, and in a particular group setting with other faith leaders like me, and actually getting booed in the group, literally. But that doesn't change. So I think that it's a woman's right to choose, and that from a law perspective, that's the only stance I can take, because I believe that's the right way. That's the right stance. As it relates to transgender rights and assignment, things of that nature, I'm still, and I'm going to be very open and honest with this, I'm still learning. I still think that there's a lot of things that I'm wanting to know. But as it relates to people being treated fairly, people having access to all the different civil and social services that are needed, I certainly support that as well. But I think, and I was listening to someone a little bit earlier on this point in particular, I want to make sure that I am answering from the most informed place I can, and what people's understanding of transgender, sexual assignment, all those different things. Because what I'm seeing now is that there are different schools of thoughts for different people, and they mean different things to different people. So I will say, as I'm still learning, I think that everyone under the eye of the law and how they are able to access, civil and social mechanisms within our local governments, it should be equal for everyone.
Ms. Parrish-Wright.
Thank you. I am an avid supporter of human rights on all. I am against discrimination on any account, whether it's a person's criminal legal involvement, whether it's their gender assignment, whatever it is. I support people being who they need to be. As a mother of 6 who once almost got actually 2 abortions, I know what that feels like to make that decision, to be alone and make that decision, and to make that decision with a partner. But at the end of the day, it's the woman's body, it's the woman's, it's her decision no matter what. When it comes to transgender rights, I support that. I see it as a human right. I see, just like abortion is medical care, I see that as medical care too. If a person is trying to, we tell people in recovery, you know what, we'll see you on this other side. Do what you need to do. We'll be on the other side for you. I feel the same way about people who are trans and who are trying to be who they need to be on the other side. I grew up with a person that was trans in Cincinnati, and they were amazing. And I got a great deal of love and respect as I watched them do their transition. I've had people here in Louisville who have transitioned, and I support them. And that love never changed. The way I looked at them, the way I go out to eat with them, the way I spend time with them, the way I consult them never changed. So I believe in carrying that notion forward for every Louisvillian. Every person in Jefferson County has a right to be who they need to be on this side or the other side, and I will stand there with them.
Thank you, both candidates. Thank you. I know I said that was our last toss-up, but you all answered that one under the time. So I was trying to see if I could get another one in. And this is the last toss-up before I go to the directed ones. I meant to ask this earlier. It kind of got lost in the shuffle. The 10-point platform is closely related to the political Black agenda. As a Black candidate, which point from the Black Panther 10-point platform best represents your agenda?
Ooh. Should we do it now? I'm ready, I guess.
Yes.
Right.
I know it's a pop quiz. You might have to look up.
I'm glad I was reviewing the 10 points before I came here. But this one is all inclusive. I tell people everything that I'm about is about improving the lives of Louisvillians, because I've lived their lives as a homeless person. Somebody started a business, getting married here. My children graduating here. I graduated college here. All the things that I've done, even though I moved here in my 20s, the bulk of my life, the most meaningful years are right here in Louisville. So I'm committed to Louisville. I even came back to Louisville like some people do. So I would say it would be the last point. Now, some people have changed the language a little bit, but I'm going to read what I have here. We want land, bread, housing. The fact that they had to say bread and spell that out, that's food justice to me. Housing, education, clothing, justice, and peace. That's what, when I meet Black people and I talk to my family, friends, and people I meet at the doors, this is what they want. And as our major political objective, a united nations, so they want the ability to be able to vote and be held and have that vote held throughout the Black colony, in which only Black colonial subjects will be allowed. So that means Black-led, Black thought, Black education, Black vote, and a variety of Black people, because we don't all think the same, but we all want some of the same things. To participate for the purpose of determining the will of Black people to their national destiny. We want to define our destiny right now because of root causes, poverty, redlining, gutting social services. Other entities have to determine our destiny, just like the status quo is trying to determine who our next mayor should be. We have an opportunity to use our political power, our vote, to bring the real change that's needed. So I support all of the 10 points, but I think that one wraps it all up into the political motivation that I decided to run for office. I knew I would run, but when I decided the time was now, is when I saw people not getting land, not getting bread, not getting housing, not getting the proper and adequate education, not getting clothing and justice and peace. And that's why I'm here to bring those things as much as I can in the office of mayor.
Pastor Findley, same question.
Yeah, absolutely. And mine is simple. It's what I've been pushing for years. I honestly think that this is the only way that we can improve the plight of Black folks here in America. It's based off the first point, that we want freedom and we want power to determine the destinies of our community. In my honest opinion, based on the sordid history of America. I keep bringing up the racial wealth gap based on the lack of political influence that we have in this country, based on the ideas of the Black Panther Party, Bobby Seale, and others. That was and is the only path forward. We have to have power, and we have to have freedom, and we have to have the freedom to exercise that power. And people ask me all the time, why are you running for mayor? Why are you into politics? You could have just stayed doing what you were doing. Because I understand that power, that's how we're going to redirect. And I brought up this, and I want to make sure I say this too. Power to bring about reparations. In 2021, and I know this is hard for some people, they say I shouldn't bring it up, but I'm going to say it anyway. In 2021, Mayor Fisher signed that ordinance or whatever it was to study reparations. We need to do more than just study it. It's happening. We need to put a commission in place to begin to formulate a plan. To me, that only happens when you have like-minded individuals in positions of power. That's what that, of the 10 point, that first point, we're talking about power and freedom to determine the destiny of our community. That's what it looks like. And to me, that is where we will start to see the most change, the most elevation, and the most liberation in our community when we talk about that. And it's not this romanticized idea of equity. It is when somebody says, no, real equity is we're going to take resources and put them in places where they've been marginalized for decades and generations. Then we can start talking about equality. I love Shameka, but I'm one of those ones, we got to get together. But before we get together, we got to fix some things. As late great James Baldwin said, you cannot fix what you will not face.
That's 2 minutes. I love how y'all coming in at the timer now. You know, at the beginning it was like, whoa, now it's just like, bing, I ain't even got to say it. I love it. Right at the end. So next portion I like to call the hot seat. These are directed questions that
So that wasn't the hot seat all this time?
That wasn't the hot seat. It was a little
It's
warm.
hot. The seat's been hot. And we get there together, Pastor Findley. We still got to do it together.
And that's why you got to come with me. Come together.
This is the Panthers debate, man. We like to get into the real conversations that at least the whole city should be talking about, but especially that our Black community is concerned about. And I know that I wear many hats. Somebody said in the comments that ain't he on Shameka's campaign? I do personally work with Shameka's campaign. Pastor Findley knows.
I was wondering. I was like, wait a minute.
But I am in mutual.
Let him be great and wear his hat. He made it clear to me, Shameka, today I'm not on your campaign team. And he's been sensei the whole time. He's been sensei.
But Shameka, here's what's crazy. When I first got on, I was like, wait, is that Dre? I said, they got me. But it's not. But Dre, you've been good. So no, you've been good.
Information. Can't nobody else do it but me. So
hey, but bro, committed. You have been down the middle. So I get it. When I first came on, though, I was almost hit that end button. I was like, oh, no, I ain't doing it like that. You've been good, though.
He did great.
I wouldn't have been mad at you. Other candidates saw the Revolutionary Black Panther Party, and they was like, I don't know, so I just appreciate both of you all giving us the opportunity to speak with you again. So it doesn't take you from the hot seat, though, because I got two questions that I want to give the people before we leave here, and probably will have a follow-up. And I would also like, if the other candidate has anything to say or comment during these, please comment. But we're going to spend about 5 to 10 minutes on each question, whether it needs a rebuttal or not. The first one will go to Ms. Parrish-Wright. You have been associated with the Bell Project organization, and we have talked about gun violence and crime in the Black community. Some people feel that kind of contradicts, as we're trying to get people to clean up the community with community policing, LMPD, and then it seems like you could be letting out the very individuals that are not being so kind to our community. How would you speak to that?
I think that we have laws that govern us, so we have to be clear. When any of us, if right now, if somebody came to my door to arrest me, I'm still innocent until proven guilty. That is just a procedure. That's a formality. Nobody is above the law. The law has its own rules that govern our cities and governs our state. So like me, I'm not above the law. Police are not above the law. I'm pushing for police not to be judge, jury, or executioner, which what it seems like when people die in police interactions. Now, my bail project work, let's say I started out as a bail disruptor in 2018, but to take it even more home, at 18 years old in 1995, I was arrested for defending myself in a relationship. I sat in jail, not because of my charge, even though he was the son of a sheriff for 29 years, and I was in the projects with a baby, a teen mother. He came from middle class. Nobody ever saw me. They saw what I was charged with, and I was charged with doing this with him. He was charged with domestic violence. I was charged with an assault. But he got right out. He never stayed in jail longer than an hour. And so he got right out. I stayed in jail 38 days in the local Hamilton County jail simply because I was poor, not because what I was charged with, because this was a fight where I was defending myself. I sat there until I took a plea deal. I took a plea deal of 2 years probation, served that out and whatever, and I'm done with that. That daughter that was 3 years old then is now 29 years old. But still, to this day, if you run my fingerprints, that charge comes up for me. I never got it expunged. So those kind of decisions that people make, even when they feel like they're defending their life, even when they feel like they're innocent, people are still forced to take plea deals because the longer they sit, the more their life falls apart. I lost my job in those 38 days. I almost lost my apartment with the housing authority, but my brother was able to pay my rent so I can keep that. But I lost everything, and I was due to start college just a couple months later. I just wanted to get out, be with my daughter, go to college, and fight my case. But because I sat there so long, I said, damn, what am I going to do? I got to get out here to my daughter. I took the plea deal. Louisvillians, people in Jefferson County are making that decision every day. Kentucky is high incarceration, high conviction. And guess what? Those high convictions and high incarceration are based on pre-trial detention. People being held simply because they can't hold, they don't have enough money for bail. So my bail work is a nonprofit charity that helps people get out in every community. We don't just say, oh, just the West End and South End. The people we bail out come from all over Louisville, all over Jefferson County, and all over the state as we bail people out in 26 other counties in Kentucky. So bail is one thing. Pre-child detention is another. Community balance is another. What the balance that is happening in our community, a lot of times balance goes unsolved. Somebody gets away and they haven't been caught. So there is not really a strong correlation between the people who are getting out of jail and the balance that's happening in the community. Balance is happening because of everything we've been talking about the last hour and a half. The root causes, the poverty, the corruption within our metro government, and all those things that have neglected these neighborhoods and neglected the people and neglected the community. I'm coming in, just like Pastor Findley coming in from a faith lens and operating the way he does, I'm coming in from a lens of poverty. Everything that I've worked on, every job that I hold has been about poverty. Now, since 2018, I was a bail disruptor. I became a site manager, an operations manager, and that's who I was during the Justice for Breonna Taylor movement. And now I'm a partnerships and advocacy manager. So I'm in policy. Policy is directly connected to what I'm going into. So I removed myself because I'm running for mayor, and I did not want my work and my campaign to be intermingled, even though people keep trying to connect me to those things. Somebody's innocent until proven guilty. So if they have a bail and they're sitting in jail, it's because they haven't processed through the judicial process. So innocent until proven guilty does not, that comes from every zip code. The people who are incarcerated, just like the people who are dying in Louisville, are every zip code. There is not necessarily that direct correlation.
Does your bail work, would it translate into the mayor's seat though as soft on crime?
That's a great question. and I've thought about this over and over again. No, there are people with clear and convincing evidence that will be detained and will be incarcerated and will have to be processed through our judicial process. A judge, I'm not judge, even as mayor. Even as mayor, I can't call a judge and say, let Johnny Joe out. That is not what a mayor does. A mayor manages the jail, manages the Department of Corrections, and talks to them about ways we can work effectively, because community releases with support is a real thing, and that's been happening since either of us on this call were born. That's going to happen. The judicial process, the court system, the police locking people up, those things are going to happen. Now, if somebody has clear and convincing evidence that they're a threat to themselves or a danger to the community, that's what jails were set up to do, to be the place to hold them if they need to be held until they're done with the judicial process. Not being soft on crime is not that. And really being hard on crime hasn't worked for us either. We have the most children who are directly impacted by both of their parents being incarcerated. And a lot of the people that recidivate are poor white young people who are caught up on the opioid process, or caught up in drugs and substance use and mental health issues. They're the ones who frequently come in and out. So we have a lot to deal with when we talk about our carceral system and the criminal legal system. But as mayor, I'm going to make sure that their human rights are honored, that they're treated fair, and that they have a fair shot in the process as much as I can. But I'm not a judge at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Parrish-Wright. Mr. Findley, Pastor Findley, I'm sorry. Did you have a comment or question about that before we get to you?
No, I think Shameka said it all. I agree. I'm one that very much believes in the fact that we need bail reform, and for all the reasons that she just laid out, really, cash bail, specifically cash bail, it criminalizes being poor. It criminalizes those in poverty. It fuels mass incarceration, and it disproportionately affects communities of color. And again, just the whole system that if you can't get to a certain point, you got to remain in jail. It's unconstitutional, and yeah, we need absolute reform. So that's where I'm at with bail reform.
Thank you, Pastor Findley. Appreciate your words, as well as you, Ms. Parrish-Wright, for answering that hot seat question. Pastor Findley, it has came in, one of our viewers asked, you stand against the TIF, as you stated earlier, and you also stated that Ms. Sadiqa Reynolds, who is over the Urban League, is a strong supporter, one of your big supporters, but the Urban League supports the TIF. How does this translate to your campaign?
Which, the Urban League in Louisville supports the TIF?
Yes.
No, Sadiqa, the Urban League came off the TIF board because of the way that the TIF is presently constructed. So, and let me also clarify that. I support TIFs. I don't support the Louisville TIF as presently constructed because it's not been transparent. So, yeah, I mean, on paper, it looks great. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons why there are many people in the proposed area that are supporting the TIF, because on paper, it looks good. The issue I have is there has not been a TIF anywhere. There's no examples of a TIF where it has not led to displacement with similar demographics that we're going to see in the West End. So what I'm calling for is more community involvement, more transparency, and not to simply bring things to the community and say, this is what's best for you. And to be completely honest, and again, this is where I get in trouble, I don't necessarily support the individuals behind the TIF, that record. So yeah, and again, in terms of
it's funny that you said that, because immediately when you corrected me, I remembered that who was on the board initially for the TIF. It still reminded me that there's quite a few people on that board that do support your campaign that I have, talked to. how would you, I guess, so
On the board?
So that question would still translate, but I guess, differently, not to just throw out Miss Dequa, because I'm not sure if she's still on the board or not. But
she's not.
Okay.
Yeah, me and Shameka were on the call when she came off the board that day, both representatives from the Urban League. And in terms of whoever else is on the TIP board and they support me, I have people go to my church that come to my church and don't agree with me on stuff. That's how that goes. So as for me,
how does that translate, I guess, into, because typically a political candidate is supported from people who want to push their agendas. So as a person, if I was sitting on the board and I was supporting you, I would hope that my candidate would support my agenda. So how do you deal with people who will want to support you or do support you, but and would want you to push their agenda once you get in office?
So I guess give me the question. Are you saying those who support me that may disagree with things that I say, how do I deal with them?
Those that support you that you disagree with agendas that they're pushing. How does that translate into your administration?
I listen. I'm a listener. I listen to people, and I'm open to conversation. There are things that I am 100%. I'll give you a perfect example. There are Black people that don't support reparations. They don't want me to talk about it. They don't want me to bring it up. They think it's divisive. Not only did I bring it up on this particular call, I'm going to bring it up in much more public forums because I do. Now, those individuals that want me to stop talking about it, that feel like it's a poison pill, they have to make a decision. And I think what makes me different than a lot of candidates from the past is that as much as I want support, I was raised this way, that at the end of the day, I have to go to bed with what I believe in, what I stand for, and I've got to stand on it. So when people come to me, again, and that's no different than the last 15 years of what I've been doing, wanting to push different agendas and wanting me to amplify this. If I don't believe in it, if I don't agree with it, if it contradicts what I've said in the past and I'm there, then I don't do it. I mean, I don't even have a really articulate, eloquent answer. It is, this is where I'm at.
I'm sorry, Pastor, not to cut you off, but I did want to follow up because the Revolutionary Black Panther Party is a strong supporter of reparations. And I'm just wondering, in a mayor's role, how does reparations play out in your administration?
So, yeah, like I said before, Mayor Fisher signed and I can't remember the exact date or what it was, but essentially to fund a study of reparations. I've been looking at, as a matter of fact, just had a conversation yesterday, looking at putting together a strategy and a commission on reparations and what that looks like, whether that's land, whether that is, and to be honest, even when it comes to my guaranteed basic income plan, there's some reverberation there as well. But as a mayor, this is exactly one of the things that a mayor can begin to put together a strategy for. And you got to go before city council. You probably gonna have to deal with some stuff at state level as well. But I'm willing to go to the mat for that. And this is why. The wealth gap is not going to close without it. At the current rate that we're going, the wealth gap right now, the racial wealth gap is widening. It is not going to self-correct, and it's not going to change. It is mathematically impossible for Black folks to catch up with white folks and other demographics at the rate that we're going until something like this is done. And I want to make sure I say this to all the Black and white folks that may be watching. This is not an incentive. Reparations are not an incentive. It is corrective for decades of unpaid labor that have led to all the things we're dealing with right now. And it has absolutely mounted all through the years and has caused us to be where we are today. So I'm 100% as mayor going to make sure that's exactly what we're going to do in Louisville.
I appreciate that, Pastor Findley. Miss,
They got folks clutching their pearls right now.
Miss Parrish-Wright,
I like where this conversation is going. There are examples in other cities where they're using that language around universal basic income. Of course, I support that, just like I support universal child care and all the things, because even if we have income brackets, like myself, you can be considered to be in this decent income, but you cannot get forward. I don't think reparations is going to solve our entirely solve our racial wealth gap, but it is a great attempt into starting to level the playing field. Just the way that I see the Bail Project work, as a way to level the playing field for people in the court. It doesn't mean that they're not supposed to do what they need to do, go to all their court dates, do everything they need to do. It's just a point that gives them a playing field that they can successfully navigate their judicial outcome. I see reparations as a way to deal with that, because if we don't have economic empowerment, if we don't work on the things that the 10-point platform talks about, on how people can reinvest, cooperative economics, all of those things, then you can just give people a pot of money, and then, like most lottery winners, they're broke within a year or two without proper investment, without proper understanding of what that money means at that point. To build wealth takes a long time. And so we have a lot of people who are cash rich today, maybe get a lump sum tomorrow. But if we want to see our people lifted up out of poverty the way that we're all trying to do it in our respective ways, then we have to have more education, more training, more investment, more, people understanding where their level is, what role that they need to play. And that's why I've been pushing that, like leadership, economic development, improving tourism across our county. All of those things will add to that. More festivals, more foodies, more attractive things that makes our city more viable. I don't want young people to just stay here, do the brain drain, learn and leave. I want people to feel invested and feel like this city is invested in them as well. So I see reparations as one part of that conversation, affordable housing, and all the other things that we've been talking about as other parts of that.
I appreciate that, Ms. Parrish-Wright. I appreciate both candidates. That will conclude our debate for today. Round of applause. I know we don't have many in the physical audience, but I'm clapping for both of you all. To go back on what somebody said, it was like, doesn't he work for our campaign? Well, I didn't know Pastor Findley before he was running. I feel like we probably passed in different areas. So I've gotten to know him during his campaign run, and I gotta say, he seems like a great brother, and I wish him the best. I wish him well. I'm so glad that you came, brother. I am running with Team Shameka, but I'm not gonna be mad if Team Findley gets in the seat. So I will say that as Dre Dawson, no other hat, no other organization, as just a Black male in this city, running with my Black community. So congratulations to both of you all for even filing, for even running. The best of luck to both of you all for the rest of the race and campaign, and also to the future projects and endeavors. I hope that this can lead to collaboration and more community, not just between you all's campaigns, but between the community. I think it's a great thing that they can see that what is supposed to be opponents can still sit in a room and talk about the things that we agree on and also be ready to move as community and teamwork. Like Shameka says, we get there together. So I appreciate that from both of you all.
Try to do that. Because our time is now.
He gave me your shout out. He had to put one.
Because our time is now.
You didn't give me. You spoke up too soon. I was going to give you closing argument. I was going to let you go for a minute. I would like each candidate to, at least tell the people where they can find you to learn more about your campaign. And then I will give you 60 seconds to say any closing thoughts that you may have. Pastor Findley, you first.
Okay. You can catch my platform, all that good stuff, at www.findleyformayor.com. I'm on all social media platforms. You can see where we are. Honestly, we've all been doing our thing. The next 4 weeks, we're going to spend a whole lot of time together in some of the same places. So hopefully everybody stays engaged. I'm looking forward to the next 4 weeks. This is going to be the most consequential election in our lifetime. So we've got to be informed. We have to know the issues. And I'm begging people, do not be swayed by emotion. There are a lot of things that are going to be coming out that are going to play to emotion, that are going to play to all of those sensibilities. Make informed decisions on who you support, who you're going to vote for. And I'm looking forward to what Louisville, the direction we're headed in. So thank you, Dre. Thank you, Shameka, and all of you. So I'm looking forward to it. Thanks.
Thank you, Pastor Findley. And Ms. Parrish-Wright, on our way out, were you saying your closing arguments? Because you just give us a good word. Since Pastor Findley opened us up with prayer, just give us a good word for the Black community. And then we'll be out.
The good word for the Black community is that at the end of the day, no matter who you side with, you still have to show up and live your life as a Black Louisvillian. Make sure that the choices that you're making will benefit not only you, your family, your community, because we are really all in this together. We might take different paths, we might have different connections, but at the end of the day, we're fighting for a bigger cause, and that's what you've heard today. I support the Revolutionary Black Panther Party because it stands on its principles beyond 1966, but even today, the things in this 10-point platform are true to what we need to be thinking about every day in every role that we have. It's some of our jobs to get in the door and to create more space for other people to come in. That's who I am. That's who I've been in many roles. That's why you haven't always seen me in the news, because I've been in the background like many of you, serving, doing what I can to help push our agendas forward. And we want a better life. I want a better life for not just my kids and my grandkids, but for your kids, your grandkids, for you. I want you to see the Louisville I see. I know that it's possible. We've been the city of possibilities. We're now the city of compassion, but none of that happens if we don't work together to make it happen. We all have a role, and it's all a leadership role. We just have different levels of leadership. I'm running to be your mayor because it's time for change. It's time for us to have someone who can make decisions, who can bring everybody to the table, who will be fair and unbiased, who will make sure that she's listening. That is the key that you should hear out in this. We're both passionate about this. We love you all. We do these things. We show up. We put our lives on the line because we actually do care. That you heard what Fisher makes. That's not a real big raise for me. I don't know what it is for Findley. So I'm definitely not in this for money or another accolade or to add another point to my resume. I'm in this because I really believe Louisville is poised for real change. And Louisville has to have somebody at the decision-making table that is able to do that and hold true to that, no matter how much money or how much privilege is offered to them. I don't want the privilege. I'm not in the upper echelon of the Blacks. I'm with you. I'm with the working people. I'm with the decision makers who help make those other jobs better and even feasible. So thank you. Shameka for Mayor is a movement for real changes. We've unleashed our changes. Please look for that. We've been sharing about that. Go to ShamekaParrish-Wright.com to learn more. It's not too late to join Team Shameka. We got 4 weeks to get to the goal. We see you when we get there. We get there together. Thank you.
Thank you to both of you candidates. We wish you well from the Revolutionary Black Panther Party, and to everybody in the audience. Peace, love, and soul. No, I'm saying peace, love, and have a great day, a great weekend. Peace out.
Thank you both. Bye.
Thanks, you guys, for tuning in. It was a great debate, great conversation between two of the Democratic candidates, Shameka Parrish-Wright and Timothy Findley. So hoping to hear more from all of the mayoral candidates in upcoming times. We appreciate you guys tuning in to follow it with us. Have a wonderful afternoon.